We live in a world ruled by tyranny, where knowledge is suppressed and ignorance is glorified. A world where propaganda and misinformation travel the airways at the speed of lies. But in the midst of the violence and chaos, a great awakening is taking place. And as the media empires continue to collapse, a new network is forming. A network of truth, a network of courage, a network of awareness. Peace and greetings. You are now tuned into the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, where we examine current events, politics, health, finance, and topics of cultural relevance in America and throughout the world, while bringing you insightful interviews with guests that will both educate and inspire you. And now, your host of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, ORRA the Informationalist.
Please just tell me what's happening to me in plain English without the mumbo jumbo.
My aura is a network full of awareness and gifts like ORRA, the informationalist.
How you doing?
Brothers and sisters from around the world, this is ORRA the Informationalist, and you're now tuned into a live broadcast of the Network of Awareness. And today we got a great show on the Truth Seeker series episode, and I am going to be bringing on a brother by the name of Jahan. And Jahan is, he's going to be an interesting guest because he's not your normal guest on the Network of Awareness. He's going to be bringing some really great information in regards to psychedelics. Some people call it shrooms, but he is an author of a book called the Psilocybin Connection, and I hope I pronounced that right, but he'll correct me. As well as he's a guide, spiritual guide, and educator. All right, and just to give you a brief introduction to what he's about, he is here to speak about psychedelics. He's undergone and assisted and taught for 6 different psychedelic guide and therapy trainings. He's did a doctoral research on psilocybin mushrooms and has had it published, the Psilocybin Connection, on all platforms, including Audible. He's read over 75 books on psychedelics, and he can also say that, he said it by others, that it's the most comprehensive books on the topics of psilocybin mushrooms. And he's also had a very, very real world experience and in leading legal psilocybin retreats in Jamaica. So we're going to get to know what he's about, get some education. I hope that this episode brings y'all great edification. So let's bring on Brother Jahan in just a moment.
You are now tuned in to the Network of Awareness.
Okay. Hey, peace and blessings to you, bro. Jahan, if you want to unmute yourself now, you're good to go. Welcome to the Network of Awareness.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, ORRA. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your guests.
Likewise, pleasure to have you on. And now, how do you pronounce your last name? I know I asked you this before, but I didn't want to mess it up.
No, it's all good. Khamsehzadeh.
Khamsehzadeh. Khamsehzadeh.
Good.
Okay. Yeah. I'm glad that I didn't try to pronounce that during the introduction. Yeah. But let's get right into it because I've never had a guest like you before. So this is pretty exciting for me because I know very little about psychedelics. Now, I have tried them, especially early on in my teenage years. Did it, a couple of times in my 20s. And I think maybe I did it once about 5 years ago out here in Florida. And I could tell you that I was on the beach and certain people have, certain experiences with shrooms and stuff like that. Me, I just get quiet. I don't have these some people hallucinate, I guess. Some people say they have hallucinations. I never had any of that. I just see the world more vividly, and I get more deep into introspection than I normally do, which I do that normally, but doing something like this has put me into deeper introspection, looking within my spirit. But with all that being said, I just wanted to mention that. What put you on this path to getting into this, to this, field of information and knowledge? What were you doing when you was like a teenager or a young child? Was this something that you thought you would be doing?
Yeah, there's definitely an intuition of it. And just as you just shared, there's a tendency with these medicines that grow all throughout nature and the entire planet to create more introspection and heightened awareness. And they are very dose dependent. So like at lower levels, maybe just more internal. You think about yourself, contemplate existence. Higher levels, it can be more visionary. And even more of that is like direct communion and connection, you could say, with the God and universe or the planet. And so as a teen, I was suicidal and depressed, and that level of pain pushes you to kind of be existential. You're like, who am I? Why am I here? What is going on the planet? And then mushrooms offered this unforeseen growth spurt, you can call it. I took some mushrooms to go see my favorite band Tool play, and I was an atheist. And then there's kind of dissolving experience and connecting with a deeper intelligence. And it said that love is the most important thing on the planet by far. Miles after that is learning, and everything else is so insignificant compared to these two values, you don't even have to worry about it. So at 18, I kind of committed my life to growth and knowledge and awareness. So that took me through 2 decades of academia. And there was an intuition at 18, 19, I'd be doing this in my mid-30s, but it seemed so far away. It wasn't like a plug-and-play profession. There were places to get really trained in this that I was aware of. They were illegal. Right. So it took about culture circling around and accepting it more for me to really be able to go all in. So about 7 years ago, I was just like, this is the most exciting thing I know of. They've been the biggest catalyst for my growth and many others. So let's do deep research on this. Let's go get trained. And what more meaningful way for me to spend the rest of my life than helping people wake up with these kind of processes that have already been a part of the planet for, I'd say, millions of years.
Interesting. So when was the first time? What could you share like the first kind of experience that you had with? And did I pronounce it right? Is it called psilocybin or psilocybin?
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin. Yeah, I messed that up as well. Psilocybin. What was your first experiences with shrooms? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, the very first time I was 15, and it was on a class trip, an overnight trip, and it still got very existential. I spent hours contemplating my parents are going to die one day, so it was really hard and intense. And since I'm coming to terms not just with death, but my parents' death, and I remember looking at the wall, and it broke down in a matrix code, and it was beautiful, but it was a hard thing to go through that one night. And then I tried them a little bit more around 18, and was getting a lot of, I felt like, awareness and growth around it. And then I just shared, like, there was a particular night that everything turned upside down, and I've had hundreds of journeys, but it was still the most meaningful because it was the first time really breaking through to a spiritual reality, and that you can come in contact with a deeper intelligence, and that there's so many different levels of deeper intelligence, whether it's deities, spirits, people have alien encounters, and these are things that have been used by indigenous societies for millennia. Now there's been rigorous scientific research the last 20 years looking at mystical experiences. There's studies being done on universities on DMT and contact with entities. If you take a dose of a psychedelic like psilocybin, 65% of people have a mystical experience. That's using the scientific method over and over. And so that one journey, because it shook my worldview radically, and it felt like 110% real, the most real thing I'd ever experienced. And it's a different universe to be living in, whether you think consciousness pervades everything, that love is real and pervades everything, and that there's an intelligence like God, versus a universe where you got to fend for yourself, we're all disconnected, there's no real meaning, right? So that structure changed the way I orient my life, how I talk to different people, and the way I live my life.
So you said that you were an atheist. Are you still an atheist?
Yeah. No, that one journey changed everything. Now it's more, for people that might still be atheists, I still hold a lot of compassion, but it's a difference between knowing that, like, is Italy a real place versus I've been there, right? And so for me, it's like direct experiences of the divine have happened so many times. And you find it all throughout the literature with this work. I've worked with so many people that have had that. And so it's no longer just an idea. It's no longer abstract. It's like a felt sense. And again, there's been many times of like being there with this oneness that could take whatever form, but it's like deeply inside and embedded in every human and every animal and every plant.
Right. And by the way, I know this could probably be a question that you probably don't get asked or ever, but
great.
You really had a really cool beard, bro. What happened?
Yeah, no, great question. I'm glad you did. I've gone through a lot of seasons. I had a pretty massive beard for the last couple of years. And then it was just a few weeks ago, I was like, I'm ready for a shift. And I've done that many times, grown out a really big beard and shaved it. And right now it feels at this moment like there's a weight off, like it like almost like carries things, and there's a heaviness. And sometimes it feels great, whether it's identifying with a deeper masculinity, feeling a little bit more older, wise, and mature. And, people tell me I look years younger when I shave it off. So there's a part of me that likes novelty, freshness, and change. And so once something stays a little too long, I'm ready for a shift.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm actually thinking about shaving my beard tonight.
That's what happened. I got the idea within an hour I did it. I'm like, well, there's 2 years just being stripped away.
Right. So can you let the listeners know what type of success you've been able to experience and also see within your work that this psychedelic therapy has done for people? I know that based on my research and studies, that a lot of people have overcome some major trauma, whether it's sexual abuse. Some people have overcome major drug addictions, even the addiction of alcohol. Some people have overcome physical abuse from childhood trauma as well. So many different traumas and addictions have been overcome with this. But in your experiences and in the education that you give, what is it that what knowledge have you gained from the work that you've seen and done? What have you seen accomplished from it?
Yeah. There's so many routes. I can address that, my own personal life and the people I've worked with, that have overcome and healed some deep traumas. And then also there's a lot of work done on performance enhancement, people that are already pretty healthy and them even, accelerating the growth in their life. And so in my personal life, there's a deeper sense of security, of connectedness, of belonging, of self-esteem, at ease, of okayness. I don't feel like it's rattled by the changes in the world as normally a lot of people. The future's uncertain by its nature. And for a lot of people, that's just constant anxiety. I used to be like that. My sense of self has changed. And so directly, that's influenced every part of my life. And so I've seen that same thing happening in other people's lives where, just the quick statistics, it's 80% effective for treatment-resistant depression. That means people that have already tried every other method of medicine and therapy and it hasn't worked, 80% of them are able to heal from their years or sometimes decades of depression. It's 80% successful with near end-of-life anxiety. People that have been diagnosed with a terminal illness, they have 6 months to 2 years to live, 80% are able to get out of that trap of fear of their impending death so that they can live and enjoy their life while they're here. 80% successful with alcohol addiction, I think it's and nicotine addiction. I think those are the highest rates out of every other kind of method. And so what it does is break patterns, and is the great psychedelic therapist Stanislav Grof, who worked in the field for 60 years, says psychedelics catalyze what he calls holotropic states of consciousness, states that organically move towards wholeness. So whatever's repressed, whether it's power or pleasure or it's grief and anger, comes up to the surface to be integrated so we feel more whole. And so you had mentioned some of the deepest trauma I've seen, and I've told this for a few years now, is early sexual trauma, because sexuality is like our life force, and it affects our sense of trust, our intimacy, our safety, our confidence, who and what we are, how close we can get to other people. So, it affects the entire way they have relationships with the rest of their life and the way they have a relationship with themselves. And it's a deep sense of power to feel kind of like I can own my sexuality. So that's been the worst I've seen. And there's people, as I've shared, I've worked with this legally in Jamaica, where they've had addictions, sometimes alcohol addictions for years, or different kinds of addictions for decades, and they don't know why. There's a deep pain. And then you'll give them mushrooms, and then all of a sudden, these early memories of early sexual child abuse will come up. And it's hard to work with and deal with. I mean, that's a big thing to come up to the surface. But now there's a path forward, because for years they've been trying therapy, but the material was so repressed. Because imagine if your parents did this to you, it's too hard for a child to hold that. So the safer thing is to repress it, or a family member. It's just too intense for a child or even a teenager to go through. So a lot of people deal with it in their 30s, 40s, and sometimes in their 70s. What I've seen is depression. If I had to get to the core of depression, is I don't like myself. For whatever reason, your parents didn't treat you well. Your parents didn't like themselves. Society's kind of pushing that. And so if you don't like yourself and you're forced to be a being you don't like, you're inherently depressed. You're in a situation you don't want to be in. And it adds up day after day after day. As opposed, if you really like yourself, then life is pleasurable and you're feeling great. You get to be where you want to be. So many people come in with a fractured identity, that they're feeling separate, disconnected. They have a lot of shame. And a lot of it's conditioning. It's so sad. It just happens to be, because that's not who they really are. And there's an opportunity with these medicines to decondition and break that illusion of that they're a separate self and what they are, and identify with something deeper. The hope is sometimes something very deeply spiritual. It's not a given, but at least there can be a psychological deconditioning that maybe the ways I saw myself aren't necessarily true. Maybe I'm a good person. Maybe I'm loving. Maybe I am actually safe. If they have a lot of trauma, they're like, they can feel like they're not safe, and that affects everything. So I've seen so many lives change overnight. It's not a given. It's just, there's no medicine that's 100% effective for everybody. That doesn't exist, right? I'd say this is effective for like 90% of people. What they show in studies that are people really deep trauma, 80% of them. But overall, I see like 90% of people really improve. And there's some people, you can give them a high amount of mushrooms and nothing happens. And just to touch on performance enhancements, there's a good book called Stealing Fire that uses altered states and talks about how including psychedelics has performance enhancement in business, in sports, in science, in arts. Because you're breaking through to something new, feeling more wholeness and confidence. You hit these states that can feel ecstatic and free, and that tends to translate to other areas of your life, whether it's martial arts, visionary arts. We know how it changed music and art in the 60s. Created political revolutions. There's been a lot of work, how there's been scientific breakthroughs because of it. So I want to share, it's not just for healing, it's for a deeper kind of healing, like even more wholeness, where we can actually show up and be a better, wiser selves while we're here on this planet.
Right. Okay. And what type of, because I don't really have a lot of knowledge in this, but what type of can you give a list of mushrooms and what they do?
Yeah, no, it's a good one. So the one we've all been focusing on for a long time is psilocybin, and psilocybin itself is a chemical compound, right? And there's over 200 different species around the planet that have mushrooms that have psilocybin mushrooms. Grows on every continent but Antarctica. So they're plentiful all over the world. And thanks to Terrence and Dennis McKenna, we figured out how to privately cultivate them in the 70s and 80s. So now there's free mushroom cultivation courses online. My friend Seth Warner has one called mycorrhizingfungi.com for $100, like hour in-depth course on how to just grow your own. So they're becoming more and more accessible. There's other mushrooms too, like the Amanita muscaria. It's like the Mario Brother looking mushroom, but it's a different chemical compound. It's not necessarily what's transferring into psychotherapy, right? So my majority of work has been on psilocybin because of how effective it is and how accessible it is. And even its relationship with humanity in the past. The heart of my dissertation was this idea, before by Terrence and Dennis, that it was actually psilocybin mushrooms that catalyzed human evolution. Simple idea that there's consciousness expanding chemicals in the environment where we evolved that were plentiful. And as the mycologist Paul Stamets notes, psilocybin mushrooms are the most common in Africa savannas where we developed. We know now in the last 10 years that psilocybin stimulates what's known as neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons. The brain physically begins to grow and it creates a hyper-connected brain state, has religious experience, develops empathy and creativity. The idea is that our early ancestors from primates to early humans did this millions of times and created rituals. And there's a lot of archaeological evidence that supports this. So this idea that it was a part of our deep past and created humans is widely accessible and is so effective is the main reason I focus on this specific psychedelic, even though there are so many other different kinds of psychedelic compounds.
So let's talk about your book.
Yeah.
Your book is basically Psilocybin Connection, Psychedelics, the transformation of consciousness and evolution of the planet. Now, what do you mostly talk about in this book for those that may be interested in purchasing it? What can you let the readers know? What would they get from reading something like this?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a lot. It's quite in depth, and partly because I spent 20 years studying the evolution of consciousness from the Big Bang till now, and psychedelics are the most interesting part in this whole story that I've seen. But I wanted to first greet the reader in the present moment. What's the current state of psychedelics? The first chapter is called State of the Union, like as if you're giving the State of Union political address, but State of Union, which is the sense of unity, is what happens with psychedelic experiences. So I break down all the known science and scientific studies that have happened in the U.S. since the 1960s on psilocybin, right? So that's chapter 1. Like, let's just get to the science and the hard facts and the culture. Chapter 2 is like a metaphysical approach of why this works. Chapter 3 is a deep ecology, because the question I had is, how do these medicines even evolve? Right? We have to understand the whole ecological framework of how fungi relates to plants and how they relate to animals and the rest of just how the whole planet develops and why it creates such a complex compound that increases intelligence and spiritual awareness. Chapter 4 is a deep dive from the Big Bang till now, like giving the huge arc of evolution. And then there's a special focus on our hunter and gatherer ancestors and primate psychology. So we were primates for about 50 million years. We were hunter gatherers, as we can call it, for about 5 million, right? And then I stop at the agricultural revolution where we learned to grow food about 10,000 years ago. Chapter 5 is the way our ancestors would have used psilocybin mushrooms in terms of group dynamics, spirituality, creativity, the emergence of language, the emergence of art. And that's like the heart of the book, really breaking down and connecting all this evidence, how it's a deep part of our human past. Chapter 6 goes into the future of therapy, the future of art, the future of science, and actually also of economics, because I see that as the main system that needs to change for the rest of the planet to evolve. It's the main thing holding us back. Ecological crisis, the racial stuff, the wars, even the pharmaceutical stuff, all this political stuff, it comes down to somebody's getting really rich and doesn't want to lose power. And so the way our economic system is structured needs to shift. So I gave a big focus to blockchain and cryptocurrencies as a possible solution for a lot of what we're going through. And then the last chapter, Strange Attractors, is how can we use these medicines that grow everywhere to really have better visions of the future so we can create a better world?
I noticed that mushrooms have really become popular in the last several years. You got the mushroom coffees, you got the mushroom vitamins and supplements. just overall, mushrooms are coming out as something that comes from the earth that's extremely healthy for you, for the human body. Aside from psychedelics, do you deal with just eating healthy mushrooms? Matter of fact, let me take a second to get this bag right here. It's one of the brothers that is in the church I'm in. He has a farm. Oh, nice. And I just purchased these mushrooms that I have yet to eat yet, but I'm gonna tell you what they are in just a second.
Do it.
Okay, so as you can see here, I don't know if you can see these mushrooms.
Word.
So these are dry, warm blue oyster mushrooms. What do you know about that? It's supposed to be extremely healthy.
Yeah, I mean, aside from they're delicious, I've thrown them a couple times and, you can saute it and they're amazing.
Right.
So those specific mushrooms, you're going to have to, somebody just focus on mycology to really look, but, it's become, as you're sharing, they're becoming more and more popular in culture, which is a pretty big fucking deal. There's mushrooms that help the immune system. There's mushrooms like lion's mane that help cognition. And so first we have to see, just to share with the audience what mushrooms really are. Right, because it's a fairly big deal. So there's 3 large kingdoms in biology. There's the animals, which we're aware. There's plants, and there's fungi. So it's a major large kingdom on here on the planet. And mushrooms themselves are the fruit of a larger body called mycelium. Mycelium is this large underground network that connects all the plants in the environment. They created the first root systems. 90% of plants have a symbiotic relationship to mycelium. 80% of plants would die without mycelium, right? So mushrooms are the fruit of this large living network. Fungi, including mycelium, is about 2.5 billion years old. Animals, about 500 million. So mushrooms have been in here, or the mycelial structure at least, 5 times longer than animals have. And we've all developed on top of this living network. All plants have, all humans, all animals have. It's pretty much the large internet and mind of an ecological system. And so we can say that the mushrooms, this cap and stem formation, have psilocybin that fits in the 5-HT2A serotonin receptor in our brain better than serotonin itself, creating a hyper-connected brain state, connecting us with the environment. And it does this for a lot of animals. There's a book called Animals and Psychedelics with Giorgio Ceremoni that breaks down how a lot of different animals use psychedelics. So we're just re-engaging in these deeper processes that have always been here. And we've missed this for several reasons. One, most of the mycelial fungal structure is underground. We've just been not looking at it. And it's very sensitive and very complex. And so in his book, Sapiens, Yuval Harari, it's a bestseller, he points out that mushrooms didn't get included in the agricultural revolution where we figured out that seeds turned into plants and trees because mushrooms go from spores or microscopic. So we didn't even really know how to really cultivate mushrooms until fairly recently in our human evolution. So we've left them largely out of our diet because we haven't been able to control it. And a lot of cultures are called what you call microphobic. They've been scared of mushrooms. Others microphilic. They love mushrooms because some of them are poisonous, right? And because of its immense advantages, its real deep importance that it kind of holds up the higher complex organism in the biosphere, we have becoming more aware. And probably the best work has been done by Paul Stamets. He's a well-known mycologist, has been talking about mushrooms for decades. And he's the main star in the big documentary, Fantastic Fungi, that people have been seeing on Netflix, which is gorgeous and shows the visuals of how mushrooms have been developing and evolving. And he was like the main mycologist in the bestseller, How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. So people have been doing massive work trying to show the deep intelligence of mushrooms, of how it can heal so many parts of our humanity when it comes to our body, when it comes to our mind, when it becomes our spirit, and because of the nature of it to be underground, we've just really been blind to this deep intelligence of the planet and how it grows.
Now, talking about fear, mushrooms have also been described when it comes to psychedelics as being some form of witchcraft. And let me ask you this. Because, when they say that the shamans or the, witch doctors use mushrooms and stuff, they say they use it for malevolent purposes to cast spells and do these other things. And then there's also, you have shamans that do good work, that do this healing stuff and all that. But essentially they say that it's all part of witchcraft.
Yeah.
From your experiences and people that you've learned under, right? Because you have a very vast amount of education in regards to this stuff in your studies. What has been the overall message from the teachers when it comes to this God force, the great creator? Yeah. Because I have a certain belief system based on my experiences. And you mentioned something earlier about this Big Bang theory. Mm-hmm. But then there's other people who have talked about this great creator force, this source energy that comes from this one force that is connected to everything. Kind of like how you were describing how the mushrooms grow in the ground. It actually reminded me of melanin, because melanin is in every single human being that's on the planet. You actually can't be alive without some form of melanin in your body. Mm-hmm. Same thing with these things that grow the mushrooms under the soil in the ground, right, throughout the planet. Yeah. But when it comes to the understanding of this God force, this creation, the what the Bible talks about that created us in His image. Mm-hmm. What has been your understanding from the teachings that you've learned from? How do they describe the God force or the creator? Or is it something where they focus on the Big Bang theory? Because some people think the Big Bang theory is bogus. So I wanted to kind of get your take on it and what you thinking from what you've learned.
For sure, absolutely. So my personal experience, both in mushrooms and academia and everything I've really kind of come through, is that the whole universe is one being. So really kind of citing that there's one large organism, there's one consciousness, and it runs and pervades everything. And it's always been the case. And for me, that has been the big secret of the universe, that there's only one being, like where there's one large heart and it's all made of love. And it's actually been the most healing thing I've come of. It takes away our fears. It fills us with confidence. It fills us with purpose. It shows us how to interact with people. So the big message of the mushrooms across the board is love. But it's the same message you see in people that get into meditation or mysticism, at the core of religions. It's all the same. We're all working with the same consciousness, the same structure of the universe, right? It's just kind of, studies show what it does even in the brain. It kind of gets the ego out of the way so we can kind of really connect to a deeper self. It breaks what's called the default mode network for several hours, which is the ego part of the brain, so the brain can hyperconnect, right? That being said, so kind of to really unite it with science here, I was a physics and math major for 3 years, right? And so there's a correlation between spirituality and the physical world and science. And so there's this... he was an anthropologist, he's a sociologist, Robert Bellah, who worked academically for 60 years looking at human culture and how it develops. And he says evolution is the main theory that we have across the planet of all educated peoples. Like, so we have all these different religions and all these different beliefs, but people that are like, okay, just what's the facts? We can all agree that evolution has been part of the process. And it's this very large epic story, like starting about 13.8 billion years ago with the Big Bang until now. And for me, just seeing this story, it's obvious how spirituality or God runs through everything. Like even when we go to the Big Bang, the beginning is this singularity, this united energy that starts to differentiate and create all these beings and all these forms and variations and creativity. But that oneness is still forever present. So for me, the science worldview of Big Bang and this deep intuition and experience of spirituality are really just one and the same. One's just the experience and consciousness, and the other one's the development of matter. And one doesn't exclude the other.
And you said that you used to be an atheist. Yeah. What was the shift? What changed your perspective from being an atheist to being having a belief system in a greater higher force that connects you to everything that is and ever will be?
Yeah, so it was definitely that one trip at 18, but it's been pretty nonstop since, from my experience now, the connection with God is all that's really ever happening. It's in the environment, it's in the people, it's in your intuition, right? It's like that deep intimacy that's always present. I just was blind to before 18 because I had no direct experience of it. The people around me didn't, and then I hadn't cultivated that. And so when I took mushrooms at 18, there's this experience of I'm about to die. And that was really, really scary. And there's this normal kind of archetypal pattern known as like the ego death experience and the connection with everything. But at 18, I wasn't really that aware of it. It was just kind of happening. So I was stuck in this deep state of fear that I'm about to die for 15 minutes. And then I just got so curious. So I let go. I was like, let's see what this is. And when I broke through that membrane of fear, there's this deep kind of orgasmic experience that felt connected to everything in the universe. And this voice arose in my consciousness. And it's a Jahan. And there's a part of your soul, as I experienced it then, that is eternal. That's always been, will be. It has a deep intelligence, and it shows a deep recognition of myself and of this being. And I was like, is this real? And the voice said yes. And I just bawled hard for 90 minutes. And it showed that everything in my life, including all the pain, had to happen for me to kind of break through to this moment. It showed me throughout the solar system that we need, just as we need spaceships to go out on the planets, we have these vessels here, space-time ships to move through space and time, these bodies, but we're eternal souls, literally made of love and light. They're the same thing, so it's the same spiritual truths that people have been pointing at since the beginning of history. But I was such a hardcore atheist, like I had 1,000 reasons why God doesn't exist, that I really needed to have that one-on-one intimate experience to really believe it. Otherwise, I thought it was just all like made up an illusion. And since then, it's just been, the universe is really big. I think we can agree with that. So there's an infinite ways to experience the universe. There's an infinite ways to experience unity in God. It's that huge. And so there's been so many breakthroughs to those archetypal, transpersonal experiences. And each one has a small different flavor, but it's always the same truth of oneness and of love. And let's do something awesome while we're here. A big reason I think where we get the most satisfaction is to be of service and to help.
Absolutely. It's all about service to others, right?
Yeah,
I love that ancient Sanskrit that says, when you seek happiness for yourself, it eludes you. When you seek happiness for others, you find it yourself.
That's it.
Let me ask you a question. You believe in demons?
So I've had a lot of really dark journeys where for hours I'm seeing demons, right? And so there's so many ways to navigate that. And what I've come through that's made it, I think, really easy for me compared to others is to not lose sight of that deep unity and love that underlies everything. Even demons are another face of God. All that exists is God. I had a lot of stuff come up with the devil in mushroom work early on. And what was actually getting in the way was my fear. That like once I loved the devil, it dissolved, right? Once you start getting fear and separation, you start creating war. I'm good, they're bad. And then you project it on humanity and yourself. And there's no peace ever. The only peace comes from like, I love you too. Right. And then, the devil was like, okay, you get it. Like we're all the same thing. It's just different faces.
And I've heard that from different people that when they've gone on the demonic attacks where they just intensify that love, whether it be the love of God, the love of Christ, there's this level of compassion that they have for their enemy, to where their enemy can't seem to now have any ammunition to defeat them, because they diffuse whatever energy that they're bringing, because it's such on a low frequency or low vibration, that the vibration of love is always going to be the greater force that's going to basically overcome anything that's coming from a lower frequency. Yeah. So it's very interesting that you say that. Yeah. Because I've heard that over and over again.
Yeah. So once you see somebody as an enemy, then you're also amplifying that pattern of oppositions.
Right.
Right. It's to see past of like, they're not an enemy. Maybe they're trying to get needs met. Maybe they're hurt. Maybe they need to be listened to. But then see that unity, that sameness between you and them, including it was what we call as demons. Right. And then it all changes and dissolves.
I'm trying to do that with people that are narcissistic, because I have a whole narcissism series that I do.
Wow.
And people call me the narc assassin. Wow. I just got called by a friend the narc destroyer. What's another name I've been given? The prognosticator, because I kind of foresee things, Have you ever, because, narcissists, they display a lot of wicked behavior. I mean, they do some of the nastiest things you can possibly think of to another human being with no empathy.
Yeah.
It comes from a deep sense of insecurity. A lot of it comes from trauma that hasn't been healed from the past.
Yeah.
Have you treated people that are full-blown, malignant, covert, grandiose narcissists? Have you treated those types of people through psychedelic therapy?
Yeah. I've definitely treated some people that would be on the narcissism spectrum, and I ended up dating for a while somebody that I would say is covert narcissist, which was quite eye-opening because I was kind of blind to the whole thing. And it was hard to make sense of the behavior. Then I had to do a deep dive of research for a few months on covert narcissism, and just it was eye-shattering how because you're not prepared for that. You're just like, fuck, this is crazy. It's manipulative and it's gaslighting, and you know, coming from a place of like you want to give the benefit of doubt and see the love in unity in others, but there's some people that are kind of walking around and identified with, I can say like an empty shell, can be kind of parasitic because they don't make their own energy. And so they use the environment and other people as resources. And there's just such a hardcore selfishness because the self was so wounded early on. And so, I mean, to be transparent, I feel, you know, I have a lot of strengths in a lot of areas, but I've kind of preferred to keep my distance from people that tend to fall on that. And there's other people that want to do that work, that want to work with narcissists.
But no, you're doing the right thing, bro. You're doing the right thing.
Yeah. You know, I think there's hope for everybody. I want to believe that. One of the people I studied under, and he'd been teaching guides for 30 years, says that narcissists are one of the slowest to heal and evolve. Like you'll do a lot of work and they keep reverting back. You do a lot of work, you keep reverting back. Probably because the wounding is so young, you know, that they're just so used to these patterns. So it is possible to work with them. Personally, I prefer it was a specialist that wants to focus on narcissists because I see it as such a slower process to be working with them.
Wow. Yeah. Well, listen, I don't blame you from staying away from them because sometimes the best way to deal with them is to not deal with them at all.
That's what I've come to in so many ways. Yeah. I'm curious what got you into it. What made you the narcissist killer? What got you interested in this?
Well, I've been dealing with narcissists pretty much my whole entire life. I was raised by one. And I didn't really realize that my mother was a narcissist until I got older. And then I had a 23-year friendship with a narcissist that was very manipulative. And then the icing on the cake, the one that really kind of made me feel like I really got to start researching this for what it is so that not only do I become educated in it, but I can educate others and bring awareness to it through this platform. So I was in a relationship. I was, if you want to even call it a marriage, I don't consider it a marriage. I was with what I consider to be a harlot. And I was with a woman who was a full-blown narcissist that kind of covered all the different personality traits. So she had a little bit of malignant, covert, overt, grandiose, communal. I mean, she covered the whole spectrum. And she was well seasoned because I'm in my mid 40s and she was in her early to mid 40s. So it was like you had said, it's something you're not really prepared for. And if I don't know how you are, but I'm very much empathic. So I can read energies very well. And I feel energy at a very intense level. Certain frequencies I pick up on all the time. My ears are ringing a lot. And it's not from tinnitus or anything. It's just on stuff that I pick up spiritually. And it took me, this experience with this narcissist really changed my life because I never experienced dark energy in a romantic or what I thought was a romantic relationship. Never in my life. And I got to experience it. But it was probably one of the best things that happened for me because what it made me realize is that I never set boundaries in my life. So now at 44, when I turned 44 years old, now that I'm 45, so it's been just about almost a year that I've actually started setting boundaries in my life for the first time after 44 years, which was kind of interesting because I'm like, it was kind of embarrassing to admit at first. I was a little embarrassed to be like, oh, I'm just learning how to set boundaries at 44 years old.
Yeah.
But the blessing is that I did. And it was because I experienced a level of malevolence and dark energy that I've never experienced before. Like, I felt the presence of demons around me. Yeah. That was with her. And I'll share something with you because this is something you probably can appreciate based on your work. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't need psychedelics to have visions. Yeah. Sometimes we're going to be revealed things. Sometimes, like, I've seen spirits in my room. I've seen all types of stuff sober. I've seen stuff in my dreams. And I've even seen stuff on certain substances that I was on. But is that, matter of fact, hold on a second. I'm hearing something in the background. I don't know if that's on your end. Hold on. Okay, I think that's on your end. That's fine. I don't know. Is there somebody washing clothes or something?
Yeah, dude. It's downstairs, but there's somebody washing clothes downstairs. Yeah.
Right. I'll make sure I take that out of the audio.
That's sensitive audio. That's cool. You can pick it up. I just wouldn't have thought.
I got sensitive ears, but
cool.
So what happened was she called me at like 6 a.m. And she's like, oh, I had this dream, I just woke up from. And I said, what happened? And she said that we was laying in the bed and that a demon that looked half man, half animal, half beast-like started coming up from the bedside and crawling onto the bed. And she said that the demon started growling and coming after her. So she's trying to wake me up. So I said, well, what did I do? She's like, you didn't wake up. You were sleeping peacefully. And she said that I was encompassed all in light. That light was all around my body, protecting me like a shield. Like she said, I looked like a white Christmas tree laying down peacefully. And that she kept trying to wake me up. The demon got closer and closer and started tearing at the covers and ready to attack and bite her and stuff like that. And then she wound up waking up. And after everything was all said and done, and the way things went down between her and I, and, she was cheating on me with multiple men and stuff like that. I realized that in that dream that she had, I was the one that was protected by the higher force, by God, and she wasn't, because she had the demons on her. And what was interesting was that when I found this all out, when I found out that she was doing all this dirty stuff behind my back and I finally dumped her, I felt this really dark presence around me for a while, for at least a week. And I couldn't get rid of it. One of my very close friends contacted his friend and they started reading scriptures with me from the Bible. And Jahan, I could tell you that literally as they were reading with me over the phone, the demons started leaving. Because I was shaking. I was in convulsions like this. Yeah. Because I had so much rage. So a lot of wicked thoughts were passing through my mind. Like I wanted to hurt people. I wanted to hurt her. I wanted to just do a lot of damage that I knew it was the old self that I had become renewed from, that I basically left that person behind from back in the days. But it started to reemerge in my spirit. And once we started reading scriptures, these demons just left and never came back. Nice. So I just wanted to share that story with you because these types of people, they're very hard to help. Sometimes it's almost impossible because they don't have any forgiveness. And because they don't have forgiveness, they can't be rehabilitated to becoming a person that is empathetic and loving and compassionate.
Yeah. The way I kind of been holding it is somebody's narcissist is like their heart closed down or didn't develop from such an early age. So they didn't develop that empathy, and underneath it could be kind of cold, numb, and frozen. Maybe largely it's probably because of their own parent. Something happened probably with the mom early on, and so they didn't feel safe and really disidentified and shut off the feeling. And they are born in a situation where they made that sense of the world that the whole point of the world is to be selfish and self-gain, that everybody's really in it for themselves. So they live accordingly.
Right.
And something I saw with this person I dated that had that, because I was holding some journeys for her and I was helping her with her work, because it's been a big part of my life. When I gave her mushrooms, you would expect somebody that's actually been kind of cold and done things that are, I think, are not necessarily helpful to other people, to sometimes actually go through guilt or shame or hard things, to like, oh, see the impact they've had on others. And I was so surprised what the mushrooms gave her was experiences of deep peace and deep love, because that's actually what she was missing earlier in life. So if somebody's living the life and all they know is cruelty and hardness, then they start acting like that, because they never experienced real deep love. And so what was healing for her in her process was seeing that she's actually safe and that love is real, and God could be a real thing. So she had a couple of these journeys, but that's not saying that that's enough to change 30 years of life right away. Sometimes it is, but it helped her see that it's possible. But if somebody's, as you kind of shared in your experience, triggered, pushed to the edges, feel safe, you revert and regress back to old patterns of protection, So if she feels threatened, she can collapse back into her strong narcissistic defenses that sometimes can be very offensive and cruel outwardly, and if I may name, you let me know how this lands for you. There's a part of me that still likes the half human, half animal archetype, because I feel it's a part of us we haven't owned. We developed from animals. It's half of nature reality. And even the archetype we put on the devil is like a half goat, half human. And I feel it kind of disconnects us from our instincts, So I'm not saying let these instincts rule. Like when you felt she's crossed your boundaries and hurt you, then all this anger comes up as protection. I'm not like act it out, but there's a lot of power in that anger, right? And so it's just like when you're scared, you feel powerless. And when somebody hurts you, anger is an appropriate response. It's there to defend yourself. It's not like don't act it out, but like it's nice to feel it and own it, So there's a way where maybe even this being was there to protect you in some ways. That's one way, if it scared her away. But I see that once your friends read these scriptures, you went back to realize that like there is a deeper spiritual truth, that there is love and light, that I'm actually okay. And that lets you relax and get out of the identification with the rage state that can be intoxicating for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What is some of the greatest findings or awakenings that you've had in your years of work in psychedelic therapy?
Yeah. So it's definitely, as I mentioned, the greatest moments of my whole life have been on psychedelics, and the hardest and worst, just because it can be so intense, both the love and light and the darkness. But as a practitioner, working with this legally, it's been sometimes just seeing like the beautiful, most masterpieces of art unfold. The best metaphor I can have is like you're there in the moment where people break out of the role of being a caterpillar and turn into a butterfly in minutes, sometimes, or within an hour, where they've been stuck in some identity and state for decades of depression, of self-criticism, of deep pain. A lot of people I've worked with have been suicidal. People tend to come right now to psychedelics when they have no other choice. They've done all the therapies, they've done the medications, they're willing to try something new that's like a little bit right now on the fringe, even though it's really coming mainstream and being integrated by science. And so I've worked with high-level PTSD cases. A lot of, 1 in 4 women have sexual trauma, 1 in 6 men. So it's huge, And then there's a lot of time, it's not a given, where there's a breakthrough, and it's like the very minute that everything changes for them. And nothing's going to be the same. That's the most important moment of their entire life. And they'll validate it. Sometimes I keep in touch with these people for years, and their whole life trajectory changes. There's confidence, there's peace, there's ease. They go out there dating, they let go of the addictions, they get promotions in work. Like, it's like you're seeing grace happen, like it's just pure fucking magic to be there in that moment where, imagine the most poignant moment of your entire life and the greatest realizations are happening right then. And you get to see that happen for other people. It's medicinal for yourself just to be witness. It's like you go see a movie to see an awesome story arc. And then you're sitting there in a 6-hour journey and you're like, wow, we just went through the whole fucking thing. Your deepest agonies, you broke through to a whole new level of self. And then here you are. And now I get to see you live that for a while. It's really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. How have you integrated physics, philosophy, and mathematics into this work? Because I noticed that's you have actually it says here that you graduated from University of Arizona with a major in philosophy. You also had minors in physics, psychology, and mathematics. Which is interesting because you being in psychology, I assume that they taught a lot about narcissism in regards to psychology. But you also had you got it says here you earned a master's degree in consciousness and transformative studies from the John F. Kennedy University. So how has your academic education helped you in your spiritual education?
Yeah. There's been layers with it. You know, I first went into college as a neuroscience major to study consciousness in the brain and hopefully to get psychedelics. And then I had a physics professor about a year in, and he was like, if you really want to understand the foundations of the universe, you have to know physics. And I was like, let's go to the big picture. You know, after this mushroom experience at 18, I was like, I want to learn everything at the very, very deep level. And I was still coming from cultures really influenced that with science, I put it primarily, and I love science, but there was this unconscious, I think, assumption in a lot of the scientific community that the ground of all being is mathematics. And so I was like, let's really get this in the deep level. And I was propelled from this place of, I want to work. You know, I think a lot of us had this at a younger age. I want to save the world. I really had that in my early 20s. Where can I devote my life to have the most impact? That, you know, we're in a big mess. What could do it? And at the time, I had this thinking of like, if we can really break down an equation that God exists or that everything is one, the whole world will change. And so I did that for 3 years, you know, and then became disillusioned, you know, even when I really sat with like Einstein's work, like say just the E equals MC squared that everybody knows. It shows that everything's energy. Energy is mass times the speed of light squared. Everything's made of light and everything's made of energy, and all the matter is. It's right there in our face, but we're not integrating those spiritual truths. We're blind because we're not living within that paradigm. Science can be really reductionistic. And then I had a mushroom experience while I was a physics major, and it said to study mysticism and to leave physics, that if I stayed in physics, it'd be like the death and dying of my soul. And that was a hard shift because I just given 3 years of my life to this. I was doing math 6 to 8 hours a day. And I was like, fuck, like I have to let go of this because it's not getting to the deep meaning of what I'm really wanting. And I was like, mysticism's not a major. That's not a profession. There's no security. So that's scary. So it was like stepping into the unknown. And so I was like, well, I mean, mushrooms have helped me so much, so I took it seriously. And I was like, well, what's the closest I can come into mysticism? And philosophy made sense, like studying kind of wisdom and history and high level understanding and ideas. And so I still minored in the rest. In psychology, I just loved learning about self and others. And then I knew I wanted upper education. So I came to the Bay Area to focus on consciousness to get the master's and the doctors. And maybe just to also share, like, how did I miss all the work on narcissism? So much of my work, you know, until not too long ago was focused on optimal growth of consciousness. How do we develop and evolve? How do we become more healthy? So it was like this upward growth psychology of like, how do we keep unfolding more and more and more? And I missed some work on, because I was studying really healthy individuals for the most part and how they develop. I missed some of the work on abnormal psychology, which it just didn't pique my interest when we went through it. And then I got to realize that there's such deep wounding that entire personality types can organize in some ways that are really destructive. And so even if I'm being transparent, I got into the mushroom work because of mysticism, and I wanted to help people have spiritual experiences because that's what been meaningful to me. What I ended up finding was 70% of my work is trauma work. Right? Because even if looking at spirit as a loving thing, if people are in pain, they're not like, hey, let's go connect them with the universe. They're like, let's help them heal and get past their pain. They're suffering. Right. You know, if somebody doesn't have food, you're not going to talk with them about God. You're going to give them some food. If somebody's aching and hurting, you're going to heal the hurt. And when they feel good enough, sometimes there's the opportunity for breaking through more. So in the last few years, I've had do a lot more trauma trainings. Even though I came in for spirituality, it's kind of shifted to like just helping people get out of their stuck points in many ways so they can eventually unfold and move further.
Well, I gotta say, I really respect and admire you for all the work you do because, like you said, you even broke through the fear of getting into something that is not the conventional way to go about things, especially when you want to build a career and make money, right? So, but where there's a will, there's a way. So, anything is possible, especially in the universe, where you can create something out of nothing. And especially if and I was just talking with a guest earlier this morning, that whenever you're looking to serve others with what you're doing, it's going to be successful. Like the universe is going to find a way for that to come to fruition for the greater good of humanity. Yeah. So I believe that that's what you're doing, because if you're healing people, you are working for the greater good of humanity, because the world needs a lot of healing these days.
For sure,
because there's so much chaos and trauma and fear mongering going all over the place. It's not just the news anymore. It's everywhere. Now it's social media and everything. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up here, and I wanted to kind of get any final comment from you, any lasting words that you want to leave the listeners with in regards to everything we talked about, or anything you want to mention. You could take it as long as you want.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's such an exciting field, and so many, it touches every part of our lives because it has to do directly with consciousness. So there's so many things I could share, but what's alive for me right now, and I could see a lot of my future work focusing on for a few years. As I mentioned, this book focused on the deep, deep history of humanity and psychedelics, from us being primates and the way we developed and evolved in Africa. But there's a huge history of the Americas that I want to start focusing on for a while. And so the way that listeners may or may not be aware, when the Europeans came here 500 years ago, there was about 70 to 73 million Americans already here, North, Central, South America, right? So let's just set that, about 70 something million people. They came about 20,000 years ago. Really high complex civilizations. You have the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans, tribes everywhere. And it seems the archaeological evidence shows that most of them had levels of psychedelic use. And so even when the clergy came here, from the Vatican, they wrote of the Aztecs taking mushrooms in their political events and ceremonies, right? We see about 200 different Mayan stones left, and the Aztecs were notorious for it. And these are huge empires, right? And so when the Europeans came and they wanted to colonize and take things over, and now this isn't to put down Europeans, but just showing that this is an important part of human history, partly because of diseases, but also with intent. It was the largest genocide and ethnocide in human history. So 90 to 95% of the population died in North, Central, and South America, right? We're talking about 65 million people wiped out within a generation. And a lot of those, it's been 3.5 million, maybe 5 million people survived. That's it, from 2 entire continents. And those people necessarily didn't have power. So the history isn't necessarily well known. There's an amnesia. So the people from North, Central, South America, their languages were taken away. We speak Spanish and English, right? The religions were taken away. They had thousands of years of religion, deep cosmologies, connections to natures, deep spirituality, and even awareness of medicinal plants everywhere. I mean, there were a rich, huge culture. The Aztecs had a massively large empire with pyramids and a deep connection to the stars, right? All gone. And so I feel we have, as a culture, a deep amnesia that we're missing. We see what happened in the Holocaust. That was bad. We're talking about 7 million people. I'm 10x that, right? And so we've lost this huge connection of 2 continents that had been using psychedelics for thousands of years. And so this is, again, it helps us look at it in a different light. For us, it's new. Just the Western tradition, but it's such a deep part of humanity, and civilizations have lived in communion with it and because of it for thousands of years. And so I think we need to keep widening our scope, of these medicines that are just everywhere already. And that you were talking about, so many civilizations have been in communion with it. It's only because, I like science a lot. It's because science has studied them so well now that they've been seen safe and effective. But that's something other civilizations and cultures have known for thousands of years.
Well, thank you for that, because you're absolutely right. I mean, something I talk a lot about, even Hebrew culture, Hebrew Israelite culture was huge out here in the what's called as North America and South America. And you can trace it back to when the Assyrians had their dynasties and were enslaving people. A lot of people fled those enslavements and came to these parts of lands. So there's a real rich history of things that have been coveted, things that have been hidden for many reasons, for reasons of control and manipulation. I think that as a society, little by little, we're coming back to this understanding and these truths that have been hidden. Things are being revealed more and more as time goes on. So I'm very much looking forward to the future as far as like what's going to be happening in the next 20 to 30 years. Right. Especially in regards to mushrooms, because so much information is coming out about mushrooms in regards to our physical health and keeping our bodies at an optimal level through the education of mushrooms and what they can do for us on a multitude of levels. So, Jahan, I want to thank you again for coming on to the Network of Awareness. And for those that are listening, if you want more information, in the description box, I'm going to have a link to get Jahan's book. Okay, the psilocybin. Did I say it right? The psilocybin.
That's it. Psilocybin.
Psilocybin. I keep psilocybin.
Yeah, you got it.
Psilocybin Connection. Okay, and there's going to be a link in the description box to get the book. All right, it's the publisher is Penguin Random House, so it's going to take you to penguinrandomhouse.com/books, and also if you want more information on psychedelic therapy, you can always email Jahan at psychedelicEvolution.org. And Jahan, just stick around for a second, and I'm just going to do a quick outro. And
brother.
I'll be
and
right
a
back.
big shout out to you, dude. Thanks for creating a platform of sharing education and awareness.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And let's play this beat Astro again. I think it was very fitting for this episode. Okay, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode on the Truth Seekers series of the Network of Awareness. And I haven't come up with a title yet, but I'll have a title for the episode. I'm pretty sure I'll come up with a great one. And I want to thank everybody that's going to be downloading the show. If you want more information about the Network of Awareness, if you want to be on the show or are looking for some connection to some of the people that have been on the show, you can always go to networkofawareness.com or email me at ORRA@networkofawareness.com. So like I always say, brothers and sisters, when you live in the present, there is always an opportunity for a new beginning. And don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, because the light is and always will be within you. So light up that tunnel of darkness and find your way through the darkness. This is ORRA the Informationalist saying peace, love, and light. Shalom.